Hey, Andrew.
Hey, so far it looks a lot better. I'm just getting everyone else in. Okay, great.
You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Yeah, just
as well.
give me 1 second. I think Zoom just literally did an update because I now have different features that I didn't have before.
It definitely sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way better, way
Yeah.
better.
Mr. Harris, how are you?
I am very well.
Long
Michael.
time no speak.
Yes,
Glad-
it's great to be back.
Yeah, glad you could join us again.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to today's session. Last time was amazing.
There we go. I think everyone should be able to share their videos now.
Okay.
I'm gonna just. Well,
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
yeah, it's funny now when I promote people, I get this nice fancy green button, which is great, except for it doesn't go away and I can't get to other things. Okay. Now let me download this guy.
And Janice and Dave, welcome both to this seminar.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Janice. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Mike. Dennis.
This is definitely better. I even disconnected my Wi-Fi and plugged in an Ethernet cable in the hopes that it wasn't me, but
Yeah, it was obviously the actual room itself.
yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Andrew, is that a white jacket?
It is.
That's a fashion faux pas after September.
It's after Labor Day. Thank you for changing that. I thought it was just white shoes. No,
It's like I'm going black, you've gone white. It's like nobody knows what's going on anymore.
I can switch. I'm sure I got another jacket there.
What's behind that curtain over there?
The beautiful thing of doing the podcast from your closet.
That's funny. Did we talk about process this time, just with regards to questions and then kind of passing it off to whom to speak with?
I think what we said, we were certainly going to have me sort of direct it.
Be the moderator? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll say, Michael, can I get your thoughts on this? Or Dave, or Janice, and we'll sort of direct it that way, just so you're not sort of sitting there going, okay, who's this question for, or who should take it? Is this better?
And now we look like bookends.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this is so much better. Yeah.
Andrew, what is the run order today?
So I was thinking we'll do what we did last time, which is we'll do the panel first, and then you. Does that work?
Yeah, that's great for me. So what time roughly am I going to be on?
About 1/2 past.
So 12:30, and I run, is it, last time I ran for 25 minutes. Is that the idea again?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Now, Dave,
Yo.
I'm just noticing because I got some slide decks here, but I know that it was put together by my colleague Jose, and he's got the wrong Dave Seville here, unless you were bald and gained a lot of weight.
So that was my pre-COVID picture.
Your pre-COVID picture. So, any chance, or do you have one online? Where's the best place to get one?
On LinkedIn, there'd be one.
Okay, let me show you what. I'm not sure if I'm sharing. Let me share my screen so you guys can see what he's got. It's kind of funny. That's definitely not Dave.
Where's that? I can't see it. No, definitely. Yeah. Just that's Right when the bug hit me.
Yeah. Let me go to.
Yeah, you can find it on LinkedIn.
That's funny.
Hi guys, Rachel at the back here laughing at you guys at your jokes. I'm thinking, Jose did a good job for swapping Michael's face with Brad Pitt the last time. He did not do such a good swapping of Dave's face this time around.
No.
Okay, so just so you guys know as well, I will be behind the scenes checking for Q&As, what I can answer. As well,
there.
Jose will be taking a look at the Facebook questions, and then I will be posting them inside the Q&As here so that Andrew can let you guys know when their queries coming in.
Okay.
That looks a lot better.
There you go.
Okay, let's do this now. There we go. Okay, so let me.
Andrew, can you show me what that new slide looks like with the replaced photo of Dave?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we got the wrong Michael Lacey. It's not Brad Pitt. What's going on? Okay, let's get us back to the beginning there.
And that's not my title either.
Oh, do we have the wrong title? Let's get
Yeah.
that fixed right now. Yeah, it's CSO, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
How have you guys been doing, Mike?
We're going crazy.
Crazy good?
Yeah.
Good.
We've got that new business with the government that we're ramping up 500 people right away.
What?
Yeah.
What's that, payroll?
Nope.
it's all the COVID people.
It's all, we're doing all the contact tracing for Ontario.
Oh, good for you guys.
So we got to ramp up 500 people. So it's been, I'm literally just running from meeting to meeting right now.
Oh my goodness.
So we
That's
really
great, though.
taking the time to join us today, Michael.
Are these
Oh, no.
healthcare workers?
Combination. Healthcare, call center,
Oh my goodness. That's
unemployed, affected from COVID, things like that, which the
Yeah.
premier wanted.
Wow.
We got 6,000 people apply once the premier went on TV and said Ian Martin is going to be hiring 500 people for us.
Mike Lacey's hiring 500 people. Here's his email.
Yeah, and his cell number.
It feels like it, believe me.
Andrew, I don't know if you've updated the slide, but the image still is not updated.
I'll get it. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I updated it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It was just maybe my screen was frozen.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully that works for everybody. I got Michael.
Okay, great.
And then is this the chat everybody's joining into? We have to get out of this one, join the other one.
No, this is it.
Just go.
Always wants to do it on my other screen, but there we go. Okay, how are we doing on time here? We got about 7 minutes still to go. So if anyone needs a quick bathroom break before we get started, now is probably the time.
Okay, doing it.
We've got a couple of early birds who are coming in. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be kicking off in about 5 minutes or so. So just bear with us. And if you want to say hi in the chat, please feel free to do so. We are going to do our best to have lots of Q&A today. So if you've got some questions you want to get answered, please use the Q&A and feel free to start rolling them in now, and we'll queue them up for the audience. The sooner they're in there, the better the chance of you getting them answered.
Andrew, I'm just going to test sharing my screen if that's okay.
Sure. Working for me.
Okay, great. I just put up this one. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. You can take it back over.
Yeah. You got that pretty quickly. Again, everyone who's logging on a bit early, we got about 4 more minutes before we're going to kick off, but do want to welcome you guys to the session and encourage you guys to connect with our speakers. We've got some amazing speakers today by either using the chat or the Q&A. And if you've got questions you'd love to get answered, feel free to post them in the Q&A right now, and we'll do our best to get to them as we go through the session. Hi, everyone. Just want to say thank you to our early birds for coming in. A few minutes early, we'll be kicking off very shortly. I do want to encourage you to connect with our speakers either through the chat or the Q&A. We will be doing our best to go through questions as we're having our discussion. So if you want to post them up now, we'll do our best to get those answered in our discussion. And I'm just going to get us all queued up to go live on Facebook here. So bear with me 1 minute and then we'll kick off. This is always the scary part. I never know whether Facebook's going to work for us or not. So it looks like we are live. So I think it's time to get this party started. I think I know I'm really excited to be here for another amazing episode of Thriving Through COVID. I'm going to start with a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who are new to Zoom, which is becoming rarer and rarer. I think everyone's had some experience with Zoom through this COVID experience. But if you're brand new to it and you're having trouble with audio, you can actually dial in using your telephone line. There's some local phone numbers there that you can dial into. The meeting ID is 500-495-921. I do want to encourage everyone to be active in this conversation. It's intended to be a conversation for you guys, and we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, you can post them in the Q&A, or you can post them in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we will open it up for those of you who are brave enough to raise your hand and want to actually get your voice on the show and have a conversation with us. So for those of you who don't know, this is a session on the future of work for independent contracting. We've got some amazing guests. I'm really excited to have back with us Michael Lacey and Jim Harris, who have been with us on a few past episodes. And new for our session this month is Janice Grantham and Dave Seville. They are both very senior and experienced professionals in this industry, and I'm really excited to have them with us and share with you their insights into the industry. Now, a little background on us. We are a chartered professional accounting firm based in Toronto. We specialize in independent consultants just like yourself, and we've been doing that since 1984. We're big advocates of technology, and we've been fortunate to have been recognized as one of the top 50 cloud accountants in North America for every year they ran the competition. We've also been recognized as a firm of the future, and we believe that technology is a great way to empower small businesses to take away the pain and struggle that you guys face when it comes to the accounting and bookkeeping. We're also fortunate to have been members of the National Association of Computer Consulting Businesses, and Michael is actually the president of the association. So he's got some really great insights into all the issues that all the staffing industries or all the staffing agencies are facing across the entire industry, which is why we're so fortunate to have Michael with us. We're also an ISO 9001 registered firm, which basically means we've got systems and processes. Those are independently documented and verified. And we're also have an obligation to constantly strive for constant and never-ending improvement. To that end, one of the things that we've been doing is putting on sessions just like the session that we're doing. Obviously, COVID has thrown a wrench into the system. It's completely disrupted everything that we're doing. But we we want to sit down and provide help and support to our community in any way we can. To that end, we built our Facebook community, and we encourage you, if you're not already a member, to connect and join us in our Facebook community. We have lots of information about all the subsidies and government programs that are in place. We provide some free help and support to a general nature through that group, because we know we're getting a lot of questions. People aren't sure whether they qualify for different programs, what's going on. And for those of you who have your own businesses, one of the big things I want to make sure you're aware of is that the temporary wage subsidy does have a hard stop deadline. Every one of you who's taking a salary from your business is eligible for the temporary wage subsidy, but it has a hard stop deadline of December 31st, and there's some specific forms that you've got to fill in. So I'm not going to spend too much time going into all the government programs, because let's face it, accounting and bookkeeping is boring and tedious, and I want to get to this great session that we have planned with our amazing speakers. So again, I want to welcome back Michael and Jim. And welcome for the first time, Janice and Dave. So thank you guys for joining us. How's everyone doing today?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. So Dave, maybe, and Dave and Janice, since you're new to the show, I'd love to get a bit of background about yourselves for the audience who haven't met you yet or in person. So Dave, do you mind maybe sharing a little bit of your background?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I started CompuStaff back in 2012. And we work with newer technologies, tend to support large financial institutions, insurance companies as well. We're headquartered in Toronto, and we've got an office in Montreal as well. From the two locations, we work across Canada, and we do a lot of work in the US as well. We've set up a US subsidiary, and we're making placements there these days too.
Awesome. And Janice, how about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I started Eagle with a couple of partners back in 1996. So I've been the CEO for the last 2 or 3 years. Time kind of blurs. Before starting Eagle, I was actually on the buying side of the equation of independent contractors. And before that, I was a consultant myself. So I've kind of seen the business from all perspectives. And never would have thought I'd be sitting here 25 years in still doing this, but still doing it, still loving it. And I'm happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled to have you. And obviously, we've had your partner on the show, Kevin, a couple times now. And we're thrilled to add a woman's voice to this perspective, because I think it's really important to hear the other perspectives as well. And hopefully we'll get to that side of the conversation today as well. But before we do, Michael, for those listeners who are first-time listeners to this episode, maybe we can get your background as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for having me. And obviously to the audience, thanks for joining us. My name is Michael Lacey. I'm the Chief Sales Officer and Executive Vice President with the Ian Martin Group. We're a engineering, information technology, technical recruitment organization, Canadian-based, founded back in 1957. And we really specialize in really supporting organizations across broad industries: financial services, power and energy, public sector, food and beverage, and life sciences. And as I said, my role is, throughout North America, and we've now got some global clients and really supporting their growth efforts in supporting them in the staffing industry.
Congratulations. And one of the things I do also want to congratulate you on is the recent news that I think a lot of us saw, that Ian Martin has been awarded the contract to do a lot of the staffing for contract tracing. And one of the things I was wondering about that is how has this whole COVID process affected sort of onboarding and the entire compliance process? Has that fundamentally changed for you guys?
Well, I would say it absolutely has fundamentally changed the way that we work with our contractors from an onboard and experience process. I would say, thankfully, a few years ago, we've implemented a lot of new technology that has made that a lot more seamless and not required too much effort on behalf of our contractors. In the past, obviously they would have had to come in, provide their documents in person and do all of those things. Now it's completely online and provides as much, seamlessness or less work needed for all of our contractors. So as you can imagine, if you're staffing up a project that, you know, needs 500 people, to do that kind of in a manual way would have almost been impossible and would have spent too many months just kind of lining up people and their times, etc. Now you can almost do 100 people in a very, very quick process. So I would say certainly COVID has really tested the need to be able to be agile and such. But overall, I think the experience and the feedback that we get from our clients is they love it. And I think it's one of the things that our clients, as well as our contractors, appreciate from us, that we've been able to really focus on their time and energy, and so that they can get up and running right away.
Right. And so does all this new technology make that elapsed time from, yes, I'm ready to hire Joe Schmo, to him being on site, or I guess on site being virtually on site these days? Has that really shortened down, or is it just that the process is a little bit more smooth?
We can say, I would say it's smooth, and literally it's quick. Like, we can do it in a matter of hours. Certainly there's things in the compliance piece, like background checks, that might take a little bit longer, but the typical standard contract signatures, gathering all the personal information, etc., all can be done within a matter of hours. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I know those background checks can be issues, it's particularly those government background checks and security clearances. I know we've talked about that at the NACCB. There's always backlogs on those, isn't there?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, I think one of the other things is all this digital and technology has not only changed the onboarding process, but it's completely changed the entire culture of organizations. And Janice, I'd love to hear from your perspective on how this whole digital world has changed corporate cultures, and how independent contractors need to adapt to this new world where everyone's working from home.
Yeah, that's a big topic, and a tricky topic to address too, because I think companies are still trying to find their own way. Many of our clients have had work from home cultures for a long time. Others have never been in that situation before. I think our own company, for example, we've had a pretty strong work from home program for probably over 10 years now, but that's very different from a couple of days a week working from home and working from home all the time. So I think there's just a ton of challenges that people have to face. And I think one of the biggest ones, and this is true whether you're an employee or an independent contractor, is it's a real risk to be invisible under circumstances like this. So if you're being onboarded onto a new project and you don't get that chance to go into the office and meet your team face to face, it's kind of on you to put yourself out there and make sure that you connect with the people that you need to connect with. It's not a case anymore of, well, you're going to show up and you're going to do great work and everyone's going to notice. Now it's more, you have to be proactive and you have to make sure that people notice, and you have to get really, really good at the video technology. I mean, we're all still learning that too. But I think if I was going to make a recommendation to somebody of one skill you could build that would really make a difference to help you integrate into these new digital only cultures, because let's face it, that's the way it's going to be for some companies going forward, is you got to get really good at putting yourself out there on video and making sure that your work shows well and that your personality integrates well with the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be rolling out of bed with bedhead and, looking like you just woke up when it's a big team meeting, right? And to that end, making sure that you are sharing your video, because I think that really is something important when you're on these team meetings. Those people who are willing and ready to put their video up just tells you a different level of engagement with the people. And I think we know, all of us, how important, networking and building relationships is for the lifespan of an independent contractor. And when you don't have that water cooler experience where you can walk down the hall and have an impromptu conversation, you've got to work harder to build those relationships that will help you sort of move up that career ladder, so that you can constantly be raising the bar on what your hourly rate is. Do you have any suggestions on what people can do to sort of create that spontaneous interaction that's sort of been eliminated now that we're not in physical offices anymore? Janice, I guess.
Yeah, I think you just have to create the moments. I mean, we're trying in our company, we're trying to do more spontaneous things that mimic digitally the water cooler chat. So we're trying to find people with common interests, whether it's, how many people have a new pandemic puppy in their household,
Yeah.
or how many people are struggling with their kids at home doing online learning, or there's lots of people with common interests, and even just the sports chat that people used to have, how your team's doing. So we're kind of making it not only okay, but encouraging those kinds of chats. So people reaching out, whether it's to the whole team or a subset of the team, with things that are a little bit more personal in nature that allow you to actually get to know the person, the human being, as opposed to the resource on the team. And I think that's starting to make a difference. People are uncomfortable at first because while nobody worries about standing literally in the kitchen for 10 minutes having a chat, it's different when you kind of have a video conversation and people know, and it's kind of like a meeting. So it feels awkward at first,
Yeah.
but I think the value that's coming from it and people getting to know each other is really worthwhile. And the other thing that's actually a plus in all of this is that even though we're a national company and we have offices across Canada, and we worked pretty hard to get people to know each other across the country, it was tough, right? Because they weren't physically in the same cities. Now nobody's physically in the same office. So it's a little bit easier. It doesn't really matter whether the person that you're talking to is in Vancouver or Edmonton or Toronto. It doesn't matter. We're all at home. So it's actually it's making the team consider the whole team as opposed to just their local group. So that's been kind of a little bit of a bonus.
Yeah, that is a nice little blessing, right? Is being able to connect with people all across the country or potentially all across the world, depending upon, where your team's located. And, I know one of the things that, some of you may know, I do a podcast every Friday night where it's me hanging out with a bunch of accountants. But that idea of getting together with your colleagues and just literally like, it's not work. It's just, let's have a beer at, 5 p.m. and after work, let's go for a virtual beer. Obviously it's, I guess there's a few patios that are still open, but as it gets colder and colder, it's going to get harder and harder. But you can still certainly have that virtual beer and connect with your coworkers and your friends to build those networks and those relationships that are so important for a long career. But Dave, I'd love to get your perspective on this whole shift and the impact that COVID has had on this industry. I wonder, have you guys seen a shift in the contract versus perm ratios? And how has COVID been an impact with what you're seeing in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as things are shifting, I'd echo what Janice is saying as well. As you're moving into the home and how to engage better, keep the camera on. Sometimes you'll log into a call, the other person doesn't have it on, put yours on, and they'll usually bring it back on themselves, and it just moves to a more engaging conversation. So certainly recommend that. In terms of contracting to perm, I mean, I'd say for our agency, I mean, everything basically took a dive earlier this year, particularly in Q2. Q3 was actually pretty strong, one of the best we've ever had. So that was really exciting. And candidly, it's been pretty much the same. We've always been about 90% contract, 10% perm, and that's carried forward with us. I'm hearing a lot of stories, particularly in the insurance sector. We're hearing a lot of things are shifting to perm. I'm hearing that a touch in banking, not quite so much, but it seems to be various industries are moving heavier in certain directions depending on how many contractors they have. But from what we've been seeing we tend to be on kind of newer projects. They seem to be full steam ahead right now and bringing on a number of independent contractors. So to us it feels quite good, and Q4 looks really promising.
Yeah, and obviously, Michael, things are looking up for you guys. We know you've got that big contract for the contact tracing. And Janice, are you seeing that too? Is the recovery starting to come back and job opportunities are beginning to open back up for the market?
Yeah, it varies city by city and industry by industry. We had, for example, Calgary's been struggling for a long time. We had our best month in Calgary in 3 years in
Oh, wow.
September. So, there's some markets that are showing really positive signs. Others, the strongest markets like Toronto, for example, I find that the financial sector is still kind of on the slow side. I think they're still taking a pretty cautious approach to their investments. They're no doubt still worried about bad debt and all the other things that really haven't worked their way through the economy yet. So they're naturally being more cautious. But overall, I'd say our volume is kind of where it was pre-COVID from an opportunities perspective, and things are looking pretty good for this year.
If I could just add to that, both Janice and David, what we've seen certainly on the perm side is that certainly when COVID came into effect in March, early March, we saw the number of requirements completely collapse, pretty much down to nothing. And that's where clients were just really struggling to see what kind of impact that COVID would have on its overall business. I would say from a perm perspective, though, over the last probably 2 to 3 months, we've seen a resurgence in the number of orders. And I would say we're probably back to about, call it 75% of where we were pre-COVID. On the contract side, that obviously dropped almost 80% in with regards to the number of recs as compared to pre-COVID. But I would absolutely say what David and Janice just said is over the last quarter, we have definitely seen a rise in the number of requirements. And as a matter of fact, we're now starting to see, we're probably up to about 95% of where we were prior to COVID hitting. So I would liken and say that we're almost getting back to that new normal, if you will.
Mhm.
And so we're really excited about what kind of, as we move forward into next year, what that could look like.
Yeah, because hopefully next year is going to be even better as people start to hire up for all those pauses and gaps that they had in during the COVID crisis, because obviously a lot of that work still needs to get done, right?
And especially when you talk about IT, you can only push IT projects off for a period of time.
Yeah.
At some point, that work will absolutely need to get done. We saw that when the financial services downturn occurred in 08 and 09, and then kind of mid 09 to 10, all of a sudden things just took right off again. And so I'm hoping that financial services will be one of those areas that come early next year, you're going to see a big increase in spike.
Right. And has that been one of the ones that was really sort of lagging in this recovery, is the financial services? I know, Janice, you had sort of said that it's coming back, but maybe there's other areas or other industries that are coming back stronger. How would you rank, like what industries are coming back the strongest? And maybe we'll start with you, Janice. And which ones are the ones that are struggling the most?
Well, telco never slowed down. I mean, telco has been booming for quite a while now, and I think they continue to do really well. Government also didn't slow down very much, and in fact, there's a lot of government projects that are moving forward and moving either on pace with what they were before, or even starting to speed up. The oil and gas, or the energy sector, I guess, is coming back. It doesn't look the same as it did before, but it's coming back fairly strong. The one that really stood out for me that's still lagging a bit is just the financial sector, and not the whole financial sector, mainly the banking side. But like Mike says, they can only put things off for so long, and they've done a lot of reorganizing in the last few months. So I think they've kind of sorted out some things and reprioritized some things. So I agree with Mike. I think by early next year, we're going to start to see them spending money as well. So, as long as the industries that are still, even the government ones that are uncertain, like what does the world look like with public transit? Do you need huge public transit programs, or do you need something completely different? So I think there's a lot of things in the world that haven't been kind of sorted out and figured out yet. Are people going to go back to their offices? Are they going to stay at home forever? Those questions aren't answered yet, and probably won't be answered for some time. So there's still going to be some uncertainty, but at least there's a volume of business happening. It should be enough to keep our independent contractor community more than busy for the next while.
Yeah. And Dave, would you echo that sort of same industry perspective?
Absolutely. And I think with that uncertainty, what Janice is saying, it's the opportunity that's going to come out of it. It's going to be, you sense it's going to be massive, and we just don't know which way it's going yet, but technology is going to be involved, and it will be using the independent contractor community. So I think there's a lot to be excited about, but we're just waiting to see where it's going to go. And in the meantime, as we're all saying, things feel as busy as they were pre-COVID. And with regards to the banking sector, I think we noticed that even pre-COVID that it was starting to slow down a touch, but it sounds like that's about to pick up. So we're feeling really bullish moving forward.
Excellent. That's amazing to hear. And on that note, we have our first question who's come in from the obvious. So thank you, Glenn, for sharing your question. Again, we encourage everyone to post their questions into the Q&A. And he asks, if contract demand is picking up in Q3, when is the right time to renegotiate contract rates with clients that were reduced under COVID parameters? So maybe Dave, I'll kick that over to you. And actually it might be interesting to hear all three perspectives, but Dave, we'll start it off with you.
It's a very good question. I know a lot of people took hits going into this and how challenging it was. We're always happy to push back wherever we can. I never get the sense that the client is going to be, they're still, to me, it feels like they're still in a wait and see pattern, and budgets are getting watched very carefully. I mean, you can ask at any time and see if things are starting to pick back up. And I certainly empathize with anybody who had to take a cut during this, how it's been tricky for them. As things start to go and I think the new quarters come out and the new budgets come out, that can be a reasonable time to take a look. But candidly, I think people are as careful now with their budgets as they have ever been. So I'm not sure where that's going to shake out and where the equilibrium is going to land.
Yeah, and I would think logically, you would want to wait at least until your next contract is up for your contract renewal date before you initiate those discussions. I mean, everyone's got to judge their own individual situation. Janice, do you sort of agree with Dave on that? That maybe now is not quite the time, even though things are coming back. It's probably a bit premature to renegotiate or try and renegotiate those rates.
Yeah, I do agree with Dave. I think we've had actually a couple of clients which surprised the heck out of me, and they came back and said, okay, we want to give the contractors back their money to where they were before. So they voluntarily came forward, which was really nice to see. So I think clients are sensitive to the fact that they've impacted people in a challenging way. And I think they are trying to be open and watch for when the time is right. I agree with what you said, Andrew, too, though. Unless your contract renewal is a really long time in the future, it is the most logical point in time to open the discussion. And I think your agency can help you with timing too, because we'll know if the rates for new placements have gone back up to where they were before. So once the rates for new placements are back to where they were before, then it's only fair that the people who reduced theirs should at least be considered to be on par. So I think you can get that advice from your agency specific to your situation. And I think that'll be really valuable to help you decide.
Yeah, and I think that leans right into one of the, I think, really important questions is how important is an agency to the long-term career of an independent contractor? Mike, I'll leave that one out for you as the sort of president of the NACCB.
I would have to say it is absolutely important. I think see this as always a three-way relationship between the agency, the independent contractor, and the client. But certainly from an agency perspective, we've got a lot of purview across various industries, across various provinces and locations, et cetera. And so I think, being there to be able to support our independent contractors, they are, quite frankly, an absolutely needed skill, experience, professional who is required by our clients in order to get work done. And so, just talking to one of my clients earlier today, is they said independent contractors are the lifeblood of our organization to complement their teams, and work just can't get done. And so at the end of the day, if the agencies, and we're all members of, we're there to support your needs. We've got lots of insight. We've been around the industry. We've been through many of these ups and downs from an industry and market perspective. But the one thing that we do have is insight into each of the clients and how they work. They're all different. And so I think leaning on us, and we're absolutely open to those conversations. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things that we do miss is getting out there, sitting down, having coffees with our contractors, because it's a two-way combination. two-way conversation of us, obviously supporting you, but also understanding what's going on. Independent contractors are there every single day at our clients and understand what's happening and can provide those insights for us to further expand the relationships as well as the business from that perspective. So I really think the agency plays a really important part, but it's not a one-way relationship. It truly is a two and three-way relationship in this whole arena.
Yeah, and I love that idea of that back and forth, because there's, insights that you can gather from the contractors to understand what's going on the client side, value that the contractors can gain from you guys, and understanding, what's going on, as Janice said, about new hires and new rates on new hires. And of course, I'm biased towards that whole legacy issue that we've always faced in this industry about, the personal service business risk and the benefits that an agency brings from the aspects of having a properly vetted contract, helping with demonstrating independence. I know a lot of you guys also offer, special insurance programs and things like that. And I guess one other question for you, Michael, would be sort of around personal service business. Is this, for people who aren't really know what it is it something that they should be afraid of? Or is this a risk that you think is, relatively safe in the Canadian economy when it comes to independent contracting?
I think it's relatively safe, but what I've always said to the independent contractors is treat yourself truly as a business. You've made a business decision. You are a knowledge worker and have expertise. And quite frankly, that expertise has value in the marketplace. And you have the ability to move from project to project, move, whether it be working in Canada or the United States or anywhere. And so there is a value to that. But in turn, you want to protect your business. And you want to do all the right things that are necessary so that you're not deemed to be, whether it's a personal service business or what have you. And so take all the right steps, get the necessary insurance. If you can, get your own workers' compensation. Do all the things that would reduce the risk of potential misclassification in the entire process. As I said, you've got a value, you've got expertise. You want to be able to leverage that and make a career out of it. So please ensure, let's do all the right things. Let's work together. And quite frankly, if you need information, not only is our association there, but certainly that's what the agency is there, is to help you through that. And so, as I said, yes, there's risk, but if you do things right, it becomes minimal.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And again, one of the great values the agencies have is those connections and the insights. They've been through so many different issues. They've been through independent contracting so many different times. They can connect you with valuable resources to help you through that process. Now, I just wanted to do a bit of a time check. We've got about 4 more minutes before we turn this over to Jim Harris. So if people do have questions and want to post them in, I do encourage you to post those into the Q&A or into the chat. We've just got a couple more minutes with Michael, Dave, and Janice. So I do encourage you to post those questions. But I think that one really important question that I think needs to be talked about before we go is, Janice, we're fortunate to have a woman on the audience, and I'd love to hear your perspective on women in IT and how that's been affected by COVID, because I think there's some who say that this is disproportionately affected, the COVID crisis has disproportionately affected women as it relates to their careers, more so than men. And I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's not just an IT situation. I think it's women in general, and you don't want to stereotype anyone. I think that's really important. I've been in IT my whole career, and what you can tell by my age that when I started, there probably weren't very many of us. So when I started off as a developer many years ago, I was always one. So women have come a long way in terms of gender equality in the workplace, and I don't think, at least not in this country, there's a serious gap due to gender, just based on skills and career advancement. But what's happened with COVID is the world's turned upside down, as we all know. It's not a surprise, and women are bearing more of the brunt of those challenges, particularly when it comes to kids at home doing online learning, or kids that have been sent home because a classmate had the sniffles and you have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. There's just a ton of things that are disrupting everyone's lives and making it tough to be optimally productive. But I think the research is showing that that's falling disproportionately on the shoulders of women. And I wish I had an answer or some advice for people. The only real advice that I have is just keep an open dialogue going as much as you possibly can with the people around you. You got to build that support structure and ask for what you need. I hope it doesn't turn into a situation where women end up leaving the workforce because they don't have enough of a support structure in place to allow them to function without doing essentially two full-time jobs. But I think that is the reality that some women are facing. And the conversation has started. That's going to be key to finding answers, is acknowledging that it is a real thing, getting the dialogue going for people, and just trying to figure out what will help, because the answer is going to be different depending on your individual circumstances, right? So I say the research is coming out. People are starting to talk about it, just like they're starting to talk about the mental health issues in general resulting from this pandemic and the isolation that's associated with it, and all the rest of it. So we talked a little bit about it earlier. The whole world's changed, and all we can do right now is try to keep the conversation going, come up with creative ways to help each other out, support each other as much as we possibly can. As independent businesses, if you're a one-person company, that's tough because it's all on you. You don't have the benefit of a large corporate organization to lean on. It's you. So I think it's really important, especially for independent contractors, to recognize that and make sure that you build some sort of an infrastructure that can support you during this situation as well, because that's what you've got yourself to worry about you. So there's no easy answers, Andrew, but I think it's just having the conversation and being open to that conversation with people is really going to make a difference.
Yeah. And I think also for the men who are listening, I certainly can't speak for every man, but I know in my personal situation, I've been very fortunate. My wife has done a lot of that picking up and the heavy lifting when it comes to preparing meals and, helping the kids out with stuff and packing lunches and all those different things. And sometimes I don't mean to leave it on her. I'm just sort of guilty of, being in my own space and not thinking about it. And so I guess to the extent that we can, as partners and teammates, that we can, try and acknowledge and recognize the extra weight and pressure that having our kids at home, even though some of them are back at school now, has put on our relationships. And, I guess just step up and see what we can do and offer our help. And, I guess we can ask our wives what we can do is probably the best thing I can think of. From the male's perspective, obviously hard for me to understand that female perspective and things that they could do to make it better. But I think we are fortunate to see that the industry is progressing, because as you said, Janice, the women in IT issue, has been around for a long time, and it has been getting better. It's nowhere near parity, but we have seen more and more women coming into the IT world, and I'd hate to see that COVID to take us a step backwards and see that division of men versus women, fall back to previous years. But on that note, we're a few minutes past our scheduled time. Jim, I'll get you queued up and ready to go. And Michael, Janice, and Dave, I do want to thank all of you for joining us again today. It was amazing to have three powerhouse heavy hitters from the industry, all leaders of their own organizations, who have so much insight and value to share with us, and to see the industry working together, three different agencies all coming together to help the entire community. I love that. I'm really, really grateful for all of you joining me today. So thank you guys very much. And I look forward to doing this again with you guys in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
So Jim, I can see you've got your screen up, and we're just waiting for you to pop your video up, and maybe, do you want us to pause our videos for you? You're muted.
Great. You can see my video, Andrew?
I can. And thanks again for joining us. Your sessions are always really fun and exciting. And I can't wait to hear the latest updates on innovation and disruption and how people can thrive through COVID. So without further ado, why don't I let you take it away? And thanks again for joining us.
Fantastic, Andrew. And I really enjoyed this panel. I want to start by looking at this cliff in Brazil, which is really popular with the Instagram generation. They get these amazing photographs. And frankly, I don't know that I would do this myself. They do these really daredevilish things on the edge of this cliff. Both of these individuals work out, you can tell. And this particular pose really bothers me. I think this guy does yoga. What do you think, Andrew? I'm not sure. And as I said, this just bothers me. And I want to show you what the real picture is. This is the real picture. Apparently, it takes you an hour to hike up to this cliff and then an hour to take your photo because there's so many millennials waiting to get their Instagram picture, you know. Now, why would I start with this? Well, really, it's all about framing. How I see a situation will determine how I behave, and that in turn will determine the results I get. And this applies professionally just as much as it does personally. So how are we looking at COVID? How, if we changed our view on it, might that change our business decisions and the results that we get? I used to represent Stephen Covey, who taught the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen used to always say, we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. In other words, who's closest to the future? The 65-year-old CEO who doesn't know how to turn on his or her computer, or the 18-year-old who's on Tinder? Who does all the strategic planning? Who's most disenfranchised from strategic planning? Is it any wonder we only get incremental change? So I don't want to be ageist. I don't want to suggest just because you have gray hair, or in my case, no hair, you can't be changing the world. But how are we engaging millennials and Gen Zs in our strategy and business decisions? Because they might have a completely different view of the world. So we're going to talk about today how COVID is turbocharging transformation in organizations. And if anybody wants to email me, it's just jim@jimharris.com. I'm on LinkedIn. By all means, send me a connection request. Your network will instantly grow by 27 million people. And if anybody's tweeting today, it's just @JimHarris. So this is my favorite cartoon from the New Yorker right now. And it's David Cyprus, and it's a guy working at home, and he's saying, I can't remember. Do I work at home or do I live at work? I'm not really sure. Help me, honey. What is it? We're all in this situation. And this is another one. This is a CEO talking to the board of directors saying digital transformation is years away. I don't see our company as having to change anytime soon, and the wrecking ball of COVID coming at them. So let's actually take a look at some examples. So in December of 2019, Zoom had 10 million daily users. And by April, that had spiked to 300 million daily users. So my question is, how many companies do you know that during the COVID crisis have exploded by 30x in their customer count? And in Q2 for app downloads, Zoom was downloaded 300 million times. On the Apple platform, on the Apple Store, that was 2x, basically, the number of downloads. It shattered all records for non-gaming downloads. And at the start of the pandemic, look at this. Zoom was being downloaded 3 million times per day, basically 6x what any other application was downloaded. Now, why am I saying all this? Because some financial institutions have been saying you can't use Zoom because it's insecure. That's like, you know, saying you can't use the telephone because somebody could be listening in on it. Like, that's insane.
Or
Once
email,
we hit,
right? Email's
yeah.
not secure.
Yeah, email's insecure. Once we hit 1 billion users of Zoom, then might you change your, policy and say, okay, you can now use Zoom to reach out to customers and prospects. Well, maybe you don't use Zoom for your strategic planning session if you feel it's insecure, but where is the market at? Do you know that pre-pandemic, the average North American worker used to spend 5 work weeks a year in traffic jams getting to and from work? Isn't that insane? Don't we have anything better we can do with 200 hours of our time? And in Toronto, it's $10 billion of time we waste every single year in traffic jams. Now, these two facts are going to have incredible impacts post-COVID and during COVID on, for instance, commercial real estate. I know I used to, just recently, I was working with an insurance group that represented the top 1% of all insurance salespeople in the country. And many insurance companies had a policy that you could only put an insurance policy in place with ink, because don't you know the magic powers of ink are the only thing that can bind a new insurance policy. So this rep had to drive 2.5 hours west of Toronto, meet with a prospect for 45 minutes, hopefully sign a deal, only in ink, and then drive 2.5 hours back to Toronto. That's like 6 hours out of your day to make one sale, hopefully. But now with Zoom, he can be pitching 8 people a day. And in fact, he's been able to reach people he's never been able to reach before. So we have to make lemonade out of lemon. But what are the company policies that are preventing organizations from being effective in COVID? This is my question, really, because this was a policy, legal and compliance for years said only ink can bind an insurance policy. And then COVID hit and nobody could meet anybody. And so those companies that had that policy saw their market share fall to zero. And overnight, the policy changed. So my question is, was that policy from legal and compliance for decades really a legal problem, or was it a problem of the frame or mindset in people in legal and compliance? And all of a sudden, look at what DocuSign has done since COVID hit. So I'm really arguing today that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We need to look at what has happened in this pandemic and pivot. In other words, in times of stability, what you want are really smart people. In times of great upheaval and unpredictable times, you want flexibility, agility, as well as smart. So Dell Computer has 165,000 employees, and Dell has said half of them are never going to come back to the office because they're going to permanently work from home. Now, what does that do for the value of commercial real estate? That is a very interesting question. And it's not going to be an either or. In fact, if you have 2 young children at home, age 2 and 4, you desperately want to get back to work, and if you're an introvert and don't have any children, you love working from home. So I don't want to have a one-size-fits-all policy. We're going to have to individually tailor what is best for employees and teams, but we're going to never go back to the way it was. This is the market value of Amazon this morning. I checked just a half hour before our seminar because I want to have up-to-date slides. Amazon was valued at 1.58 trillion. Well, these 8 retailers added together were only 500 billion. So you can triple these 8 retailers and they're worth less than Amazon. If that doesn't tell you that online shopping or e-commerce is going to transform the retail industry, think again. By the end of 2019, e-commerce was 16.3% of all retail sales. So this next slide blows me away. It took 10 years for retail online sales to grow by 11%. It took 90 days, the first 90 days of COVID, to drive the same amount of growth. In other words, Our hypothesis today is that COVID has turbocharged digital transformation. And in the case of e-commerce and online sales, we saw 10 years of growth in the first 90 days of COVID. In fact, Amazon has had to hire 275,000 people to keep up with package volumes during COVID. You know, how many companies have grown by almost 300,000 employees? It's causing bankruptcies in traditional retailers. These companies have all gone bankrupt, and in Canada, Reitmans. In fact, UBS, the Swiss analyst firm, predicts 100,000 US retail locations will permanently close because of COVID. Not all at once, because some will limp along because it's cheaper to lose a little bit of money and stay open than to, you know, break your lease and pay a bigger penalty. But 100,000 locations are going to close because of COVID. So if you're enjoying this, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I'll send you this article if you want, a cover story on how COVID, or how autonomous vehicles are changing forever a couple of dozen industries. So jim@jimharris.com. I'm going to just quickly turn to what is possible and what is impossible in the last 10 minutes here. So this is the rate of change. This is how long it took different industries to reach 50 million users. It took the airline industry 68 years, and it took Pokemon Go 19 days. In other words, the rate of change is accelerating. And this is exciting for independent IT contractors, because companies need to digitally transform now more than ever before. Here's another impossible thing. If you look at Tesla's market cap or value today, it's 401 billion. You can take Ford, add it to GM, add it to Fiat Chrysler, those three added together and multiplied by 4, and it's worth less than Tesla. If that is not head spinning, I don't know what is. If that doesn't tell you the auto industry is in trouble, that electrification is going to change the $10 trillion transportation industry, think again. And what is driving all this change? Well, we all know about Moore's Law in the IT industry. There are about 24 exponentially changing laws that are driving this relentless change. Moore's Law, of course, you know, the doubling of processor power every 18 months, staying at the same price point, means that way back in 1970, there were 2,000 transistors on an Intel CPU. And today, a CPU can have 43 billion transistors, staggering. And what that means is, practically in terms of consequences, that compute power has dramatically changed. A gigaflop is doing a billion transactions in a single second. And in 1961, a gigaflop was $153 billion on mainframes. And in this year, 2020, it's a half cent. And that's like so 2020, because in 2021, it's going to be a quarter cent. And what does that mean? That means practically that compute power, number one, is free, and number two, it's at the edge, meaning it's on my smartphone, not in a data center. You'll think back to 1997 when IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov, the world chess champion in chess. That was a aha moment. IBM's Deep Blue project was a $100 million project. And do you know today my smartphone has more raw computing power than IBM's Deep Blue? So I'm carrying around a $100 million supercomputer in my hip pocket at all times. And what is surprising is the number of Canadian companies that don't use, aren't mobile centric. You know, they're choosing not to use the $100 million supercomputer in their client's hip pocket or purse. So it's alarming to me that so many companies are not mobile centric. This is another huge opportunity for the IT consulting community. It's not just that compute power is cheaper, it's lighter, faster, smaller, more versatile, with millions of applications, right, in the Android and the iOS world, increased accuracy, but more importantly, it offers new business models and different ways of interacting with customers. Just for instance, think about this. Facebook has announced Libra, which is a cryptocurrency. They haven't actually launched it. They announced it a couple of years ago. Imagine sending and receiving money is as easy on Facebook as it is to instant message people. Will that change, the financial system ecosystems? Will that challenge banks? Could we see Libra doing, say, $50, $500 billion of business within just months of launching? Absolutely. This is how fast disruption can actually happen. So I want to just turn to look at the whole issue of mobile in the last few minutes that I have here. So this is a staggering stat. On IPO, companies that are mobile centric have an 825% higher valuation than companies that have no mobile presence at IPO. 825%, staggering difference. And why is this the case? Well, the first reason is scaling. Do you know that Uber is worth more than every taxi cab company in North America added together? That's because Uber has a single app. And, all the taxi cab companies, what are they doing in response? They're busy developing their own app for $250,000. Well, I'm not going to download 19,000 North American, taxi apps. I'm just not going to do it. And key in my data with my fat thumbs to each one. So it's not just about being mobile centric, it's about changing my mindset. All the taxi cab companies need to work together on a single app, which I would download. Look at the consequence of not thinking differently. This is the largest US market for taxis in New York City. And look at the fall of the yellow cabs compared to Uber and Lyft. And that's affected the value of taxi medallions, which has fallen 90% since Uber came onto the scene. So not focusing on disruption has a huge negative impact on the valuation of businesses. This is why IT and strategic thinking are so important. The second reason why mobile companies have an 825% higher value on IPO is they are accessing that supercomputer in all their customer and prospects' pockets and purses. We've already talked about this with Gary Kasparov. The third reason is location, 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 location. And we all know that Tinder uses location for local hookups, but take that principle and now apply it to eBay or Kijiji. And these are new entrants into that market that use location so you can buy things locally in the catchment area. So how can you use location on an app to really supercharge your adoption rate? Finally, millennials and Gen Zs use mobile for all their needs. Photos, gaming, texting, sexting, music, videos, maps, weather, buying, selling, research, health and fitness, transportation, bike sharing, Uber, Lyft, reading books and magazines, payments, social. If you have a Tesla, that's how you get into your car. It's with your smartphone, navigation, investing. And by the way, it's a phone too. In other words, the smartphone is the Swiss Army knife of modern day life. It is central. And really, it needs to be central in the business strategy for all organizations. So I'm just going to run through these next slides quickly. This is the smallest AI chip in the world. I saw it at CES in January when I was there physically present. Front and back of it, you can see how tiny it is. It's being included this year in 500 million smartphones globally. That will double by 2024. And what that really means is that our smartphones are getting smarter. We're seeing the medicalization, for instance, of the smartphone. There's an application from the University of Cambridge that listens to your breathing and coughing and predicts whether you have COVID or not. So we're beginning to use smartphones in ways we've never used before. In fact, during COVID in China, 300 million users were using this particular app. And 50% of all visits to medical institutions during COVID in China were virtually. So we're going to see a huge transformation of the healthcare industry. In fact, one consulting firm says it's a $250 billion opportunity. Again, huge opportunity for IT and consulting. I just want to finish with a couple slides here, which is one, IT is absolutely essential in terms of retraining. We need to do more retraining than ever before, given the changes we're seeing and given COVID. This is McKinsey saying that continually retraining is absolutely essential for the IT profession. In fact, this was pre-COVID. This is the World Economic Forum saying that everybody needs an extra 20 days of training, and this was pre-COVID, learning and development. And we're facing so much stress. This is why today's event is so important. The CEO of Salesforce said 36% of Salesforce's 50,000 employees are experiencing mental health challenges. And that's in a company that's growing. So we need more communication, more involvement with individuals, people, teams. So I just want to finish with this fun little thing, which is who's leading your firm or your client's firm's digital transformation? Is it A, the CEO, B, the CIO, or C, COVID-19? And the answer is COVID-19. So you can email me at jim@jimharris.com. As I said, I'm on LinkedIn. You can get this article, which is 2,000 words. You can also get this article, which is what I've been talking about today. I want to thank Rachel for doing all the behind the scenes work. It has been great to be on this, and it was such an honor to be on with such an esteemed panel. And I turn it back over to you, Andrew.
Well, thank you, Jim. Another amazing session from you. It's so interesting and enlightening. And I think, as you said in your presentation, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. I think that was, a really good point about this is even those people who have been really impacted by the industry, there's some opportunities to get in those 20 days of training so that you're coming out the other side of this COVID experience better than ever before. And again, I want to thank Janice, Dave, and Michael for taking the time out to join us today. It's been a really informative session, and I love having these discussions. And I hope we can get you guys back again in the future. So thank you guys very much. And with that, we'll see you guys for the next session. And if anyone wants a copy of the slide deck, we'll be making sure to, or the recording, we'll be making sure to get that out to you guys as well. It's available on our Facebook page. And if you did enjoy this session and you found these things helpful, we'd love to hear that feedback. Please feel free to post a review on Facebook for us. So we're facebook.com/CPA4IT.
One other thing to add, Andrew, is if you've really enjoyed today's session and know a colleague who would really enjoy being involved in the next one, send their email along so they can receive an invite to the next one.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great Thursday. Bye for now.